Today I'll be sharing some Ricoh GR tips that'll actually make your life easier. If you've been a long time Ricoh shooter, you'll probably know most of these tips. But if there's anything that I missed, please feel free to share your experience, your knowledge down in the comment section below so all of us can grow and become a better human being. So the very first tip is that you can review your photo without actually turning on the camera. And by that I mean without like the lens to come out like physically. It's very simple. All you have to do is long press the playback button and then the camera will turn on and you can review your photos. And furthermore, if you press menu, you can go inside like camera settings and just play around with the menus however you like without having to like have the lens to come out physically. And I find that very useful because it minimizes the amount of time where you have to turn on your camera where the lens comes out and then sucks more dust back inside the camera like the 3 does. So yes, the same function works on the 3 as for the 4. Now here's a weird downside because whenever you're in playback mode and then you go to menu, but you can't really go back to playback mode. The camera just turns off automatically. You can also turn off the camera by pressing the on and off button like once. However, I do hope in future updates where like I can actually toggle between menu and then playback just to review my photo if I want to, instead of like turning off the camera altogether and have to like long press playback button again to review my photo. So yeah, hopefully in future firmware updates. So less dust, less drama, and when you're ready to shoot, just half press the shutter button. Boom, the lens comes out and you're ready to go. Now the next tip is on the GR World app, and I found this out by accident when I was trying to transfer photos from my Ricoh GR4 to my iPhone. Under camera setting and communication settings, by default it's at 2.4 gigahertz. Now we want to switch that to 5 gigahertz because that is way faster compared to 2.4. I said it's about 1 second per JPEG files and maybe like 1.5 to 2 seconds for RAW files. It's not lightning fast, but it's not like grandma's internet either. And to be honest, this in my opinion makes the app a lot more usable than I first thought it would, because like when I was trying to transfer files at 2.4 gigahertz, it was just insanely slow. I was just like, I might as well just put an SD card reader on my phone. But once you switch to 5 GHz, it's day and night. Now if you find this video helpful so far, please feel free to like, hype, and subscribe. This will help me a bunch and I truly appreciate your support. This next tip I want to share is that you can actually tap on the screen to take photos. This will make you more discreet than ever on the street if you are using this camera for street photography. Because technically you can just hold your camera like a phone and just like tap 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 and you're taking photos. No one will ever notice, or some will, but they'll just think that you have a phone on you. Anyways, to turn on that feature, you want to go to menu, customize controls, and first thing first, you want to turn on LCD touch operation. Once you have that on, you'll go down to touch autofocus. Now over here you have like lots of options. You can just adjust the autofocus point. The second one is autofocus point plus focus, so you can adjust the point and focus at the same time. Now the third one is autofocus point plus focus and then shoot. Basically it does everything and it takes a photo for you. Now if you want to be a ninja and shoot photos unnoticed by just tapping this LCD screen and take photos, that's the setting you want to be on. And there's also full press snap. Basically it's gonna use the snap focus system inside the camera and just take a photo right away quickly. Since we're under customized setting, let's go to the first dot, which is user mode. And at the very bottom we have adjust mode setting. Basically you can customize the adjust lever to functions that you actually use. If you don't know what that is, it's basically this wheel at the back of the camera. If you press down and then it'll just like show you 5 different menus that you can go through. This will allow you to customize the adjust lever to functions that you actually use, because no one has time to like just scroll through 5 layers of menu mid-shoot. Since we're at it, if you're using a Ricoh GR3 or 3X, then you might want to consider adjusting one of these settings to ISO, because the wheel tends to die on you over time, like mine. When you turn, it doesn't really turn, so it's really hard to adjust the ISO up here. So instead of using the wheel to adjust ISOs, have one of these settings in ISO. This way you can click into it and then just adjust your ISO by going up and down button on the camera. That's exactly what I use now on the GR3 to adjust ISO, because the wheel just doesn't work. But if you are using the 4, then you probably don't need it, because these 2 buttons seems to be quite rigid. But you can basically adjust your settings however you like, depending on how you like to shoot, and customize this according to your shooting style. If you shoot auto ISO, you can change the ISO range limit inside the menu. This will keep your photo from looking like they were shot inside the microwave. To set your ISO range limit, you want to go to menu, and then the first menu, that is still image settings, and then you want to go to the second dot, which is exposure setting. Under that, you'll find ISO setting. The upper limit, that's where you can set like which ISO that you don't want the camera to like surpass. And right over here, I'm gonna set it to 6400. Now the auto lower limit, I'm gonna set it to 100. So whenever you're shooting with auto ISO, this is basically the range that you tell the camera to not to surpass or go under. Now if you go down to image process setting on page 5, you'll find shake reduction. Leave it on unless you had your early morning coffee. This next tip is on shooting display. Basically, when you press the display button here at the back, you can toggle through different kind of like shooting page. And one display mode blacks out the screen completely, which actually comes in handy sometimes, especially when you're running out of juice and you want to save battery, or you're shooting blind if you already know your 28mm field by heart. So in order to customize that, you want to go to customize settings, and on page 3, display customization, then go down to shooting info display. Basically, you can choose which one to be on at the moment, and you can toggle display by just going through different pages. Now the very first line is LCD display. I have one with everything that I need, and the other one just clean, nothing on the page, just the frame itself. And the very last one is like a blackout page, like I mentioned earlier. So under the very first line, I have histogram and electronic level. You can also have grid guide on if you want. I personally find that to be a bit distracting, especially on tiny screen like this. So that's why I have it off. And the second line here is basically just showing you at the bottom line, which makes it a bit more clean in my opinion. However, I'm more like a all or nothing type of guy. So I'm gonna have like all the things I need in the first page, and then the second page is basically just the frame itself, and the last page is blank. Definitely go in and play around with this and set however shooting display information that you want that suits your personal shooting needs. Under customize settings and the second page, customize controls, the very first one you see function button setting. Right now I have this set to ND filter. This is where you can customize the function button to whichever button that you like. And finally, you can turn off the startup menu index in settings. I personally just find it clunky and a little too fast to read anyways. So here's where you can turn it off. You want to go to setup, all the way down at the wrench menu, and then page 2, display settings, guide display, and you want to turn that off. Now whenever you turn on the camera, it's not gonna have that list of guide display in front of you for like 2 seconds. And that wraps up all the tips that I want to share in today's video. Again, if you have different tips or tricks that you know on the Ricoh GR3, the 4, or maybe the 2 that you'd like to share, you know that I missed, I definitely missed a bunch, I believe. So if you know and then you find that super helpful on like whenever you use the Ricoh, then definitely feel free to share that down in the comment section. I would love to learn more from your experience and your knowledge, and I'm sure a lot of people do as well. And please, if you haven't already, please like, hype, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.